had to go up to the duck off spot so that I can get comfortable. Let me kick off my shoes real quick because I'm gonna relax. So I was debating on if I wanted to go live or just do a recording so that I can edit. But I say raw and rugged is always best with me, right? I stumble and fall, but it's all right. You'll understand all the madness as we go through it. And hopefully a smart aleck or two will stop by and join the conversation. But my point of coming to this post today was what the back and forth is about Nick Canon making comments, I guess anti-Semitic comments in his podcast. And I'm gonna be honest and say that I have not seen said podcast in full. I've only caught bits and pieces of what the story is becoming and what it's based off of. And actually, I think I made a post today that claimed to be about why everybody was so against what he said, but I don't believe that was it. I think ultimately it was something regarding him saying that black people were the first original Hebrews or something like that, and I'm not sure exactly where his argument against the Jews came from. So forgive me off top for being ignorant. I'm sure somebody gonna jump in a little later and and make that comment that says how ignorant I am. But I'm going to say that now so you can feel stupid later when you watch the whole video. That being said, so like I said, I'm gonna follow up with the video later, and maybe I have different conclusions. But just off of the top of what I've been hearing, the one post that I seen today that kind of made me go there was a post with with whoever, The View, I guess that's the show that she's on. And I love The View. Whoopi always holding it down, and it's a nice diverse cast to be able to give different viewpoints, so I can definitely appreciate it. But the one redhead old chick, she was a little angry, and that's what kind of made me go there. She made me want to go a little bit deeper, and she was talking about how he's so stupid. But like you just had this man as a guest maybe about a week or two prior, is what one of the co-hosts said. But you're now calling him stupid based off of probably a clip, no more than probably what I've seen or what you've heard, and you made a judgment about this man based off of that. I really don't believe, I think, what's her name, Joy? I'm not certain. I don't believe that she really had a basis of argument. She just saw an opportunity to be mad at a black person that was in celebrity status and kind of jumped on the bandwagon. I'm not sure if she's Jewish or not, but I mean, that's neither here nor there. But my point in all of this is that I find it so sad that we can't just hear each other out. Even when we are making valid points, your ego is so big that you can't accept truth. And I feel like Nick Canon is definitely not the person that will be the one to want to break, I guess, relationships. I'm sure he was very aware of what he was saying, but at the same time, it was his own platform to say it in. So who's to say, just because I work for this company and that company, that you get to control my voice? And that's my fear in doing any type of platform that makes you, in the public eye. Everybody's looking at you, and now you have to conform to what their idea of what you should be. And that's not so. How did you fall in love with me in the first place? It wasn't because I was conforming to shit that you liked. It was because you liked the fact that I did speak or voice my opinions differently and had a different viewpoint to offer than typical. So why try to silence me now just because you have the power to do that? And I think that is so stupid. I'm gonna say that I'm riding with Nick. I hate that he even had to apologize for the shit that he said, whatever again that he said, because I really don't believe it was that deep. Again, I believe that egos were too big to accept information that was given in a healthy way. I just don't see Nick Canon as that angry dude that's like me. It's like, if you really think, if you know me, and you think that anything that I say is hate-filled in any capacity, it's not, because I don't let things consume me like that. But I do have a viewpoint, and you will always hear what my viewpoint is, and I will listen and respect yours. I don't have to accept it, and I don't have to argue with you about it, because that's your viewpoint. We have two different walks in life. You cannot judge my experience, so you can't really rationalize my perception of things, just like I cannot do that for you. And I think that people lose that idea when they rush to judgment and jump on the viral bandwagon of who to agree with and who not to agree with. But in relation to how I'm assuming this argument will be going, we have a book. Okay, I want to start here. Dr. Claude Brown. I always call this man Claude Brown. Dr. Claude Anderson has this book, y'all. This book is the Black Bible. This is what I consider the Black Bible. Everybody talks about how we should have a plan, or what would black people should want to be able to gain the power that we're looking to have within this whole world. And the blueprint is right in this freaking book. This man has gone above and beyond to dissect the reasons why we've been overlooked, the why, the who, the what, the why. He gives it all in this book. And people have not, I don't know if they haven't read it, or if, again, egos come into play and you feel like your plan could be better. I feel like everything can always be tweaked, but you should always go off of, hey, this is somebody from back in the day. He's been fighting from day one. So I would think that he does know. But in this book, he has a particular post that is called, a chapter within the book that's called the Black Jewish Alliance. And I want to read it. It's a little lengthy, y'all, but just kind of follow with me if you can. I really appreciate it. But this is the type of shit that you have to kind of consider when you think of the black plight. So just let me read it, and we gonna dab through it. So just follow me. Okay, the Black Jewish Alliance. It is often a conclusion of popular history that blacks and Jews have always shared. However, in their struggles to escape bondage and second-class citizenship, blacks have had few temporary and no permanent allies. At various times, abolitionists, liberals, and individual Jews have provided visible support to black causes, and sometimes at great personal risk and expense. They have lobbied state and federal legislative branches of government, contributed financial resources, provided surrogate leadership, and given their lives to assist blacks. But these contributions were made by individuals and not by Jews as a class, religious, or racial body of Samaritans. Prior to the 20th century, there were no known recorded public commitments of Jewish organizations to help blacks. Beyond their good intentions, neither the abolitionists nor individual Jews achieved great success in helping blacks due to major philosophical flaws in their strategies. The flaw in the abolitionist strategy was that they did not recognize or treat slavery as an economic issue that it was. They made the abolishment of slavery a moral issue, which it was not. As a moral issue, the abolitionists appealed to the consciousness of slaveholders concerning right and wrong. These appeals did not damage the slaveholders' profits from slavery, though. By not treating slavery as an economic issue, the problem, they perhaps unwittingly supported slavery and undermined their own anti-slavery argument. They continued to use, rather than boycott, slave-produced products such as cotton goods, tobacco products, table foods, alcoholic beverages, iron products, and jewelry made from gold and silver. They could have held their monies from the shoe industry, insurance, and shipping companies, and other businesses that directly and indirectly made their profits from black slavery. After Reconstruction, the efforts of individual Jews to assist blacks were flawed because they encouraged blacks to do something that Jews themselves did not want to do, and that was to assimilate into the broader white culture. Jews helped to secure civil and voting rights, but these legal rights, though important in principle, gave the appearance of making blacks self-sufficient, when in fact, these gains could not appreciably change blacks' wealth and power base. Worse still, the socio-economic alliance between Jews and blacks did not emphasize blacks learning the self-sufficiency skills and the strategies that the Jews mastered. From the beginning of the alliance in the 1900s, Jews kept their problems and black problems in perspective. Jewish problems became first. Jews did not totally identify with blacks. Jews fleeing persecution in Europe in the first and second decades of the 20th century entered America just as blacks were being forced into separate but equal worlds of Jim Crowism. The majority of Jews were poor, liberal, and alone. Some were sympathetic to black problems and allied with them against racial bigotry. In the 1920s and 1930s, blacks returned the favor by aligning with Jews against religious bigotry and oppression. The alliance benefited each group and presented a common front against some common conservative enemies. The alliance ultimately gave blacks access to high levels of government and the corporate world. In return for Jewish support, blacks gave Jews carte blanche access to every aspect of the black society. Jews established neighborhood businesses that survived strictly off of black customers. They advised black leaders on public policy matters. Jews also built entire industries in and around resources that blacks controlled or owned, such as sports, entertainment, and music, still to this day. For nearly half a century, Jews were officially endorsed as the liberal intermediaries between white and black America. The alliance began to break down as blacks became increasingly disenchanted with their lack of progress and stagnant socioeconomic conditions. As the social fortunes of Jews and blacks began to diverge, the relationship became more paternalistic. Black organizations such as the NAACP, the National Urban League, as well as the independent black leaders were advised to pursue social integration, upward mobility within mainstream society, and civil rights. Black leadership was convinced that once blacks had obtained integration and civil rights, the quality of life would naturally improve for all blacks. Right? Yeah, right. After all, that strategy worked for the Jews. As the society began to soften its virulent anti-Semitism of the 1940s, Jews used their newfound mobility to secure wealth and power for themselves. However, a decade after the 1954 desegregation decision and the civil rights movement, not only had black America's socioeconomic dilemma not been resolved, it was getting worse. Blacks outside of the traditional civil rights organizations became convinced that the only way to improve the conditions of black America was for blacks to take complete economic and political control of their communities, institutions, and culture. Many voiced anti-white sentiments that frightened and threatened the white establishment. We can't never come together because then we look like a threat. Through slogans, symbols, and urban riots, Black America informed the nation that having lost faith in the system, they had established alternative black leadership and were committed to achieving black power. By the mid-1960s, religious attitudes and socioeconomic conditions had significantly changed for Jews in America. They had become the wealthiest and most influential political group in the nation. They had been accepted into the dominant society with practically unlimited mobility opportunities. They controlled a major share of wealth, businesses, professional and management positions, government influence, and access to institutions of higher education. Having made remarkable social and economic achievements, Jews now had a philosophical base for becoming more conservative. The Black Power protests of the late 1960s moved many Jews closer to the right-wing conservative principles. Jews' increased conservatism was reflected in their reverse attitude towards their role of government. Previously, Jews and blacks were advocates for strong governmental roles in combating discrimination, alleviating the plight of the poor, and aiding in social mobility. And according to Tom W. Smith, in a 1990 article entitled Jewish Attitudes Towards Blacks and Race Relations, published in the American Jewish Committee's Jewish Sociology papers, Smith wrote that both Jews and blacks encourage government involvement to improve the lives of the socially disadvantaged through progressive measures such as the New Deal policies. From the 1930s to the 1950s, they used the legislative and court systems to pursue integration and broad intervention policies. But according to Smith's Attitude Survey, after blacks demanded specific governmental assistance, Jews changed their minds about the rule of government. For instance, Smith reported that today, a majority of Jews do not favor government measures to help blacks. More government spending for blacks or the use of busing to achieve to achieve school integration. In response to the specific question, does the government have a special obligation to improve blacks' living standards? More than 46% of Jews were opposed and 26% were either neutral or undecided. So according to the Smith report, Jewish attitudes on the question of the government's responsibility to assist structurally handicapped groups, such as Jews were years ago, has now turned 180 degrees now that they have the power. At the start of the 20th century, they were pro-government involvement. By mid-century, they were opposed to it. Harold Cruz, in his book Plural But Equal, offers his explanation for Jews turning towards conservatism and away from blacks. The opposition of Jewish liberalism to the threats of quotas shows that when power enclaves are threatened sociologically and psychologically, the dominant white society will instinctively impose, limit, and restrict such changes. In such manner are the venues to social and economic power effectively maintained. While some Jews opposed the vehicle of quotas and affirmative action 3 decades ago, various Jewish organizations have worked to keep a dialogue going with the black community. Others have continued to feel alienated from blacks. Today, some Jews are upset because of the alignment of some members of the black community with the Nation of Islam, which teaches that Jews have been just as oppressive and exploitive of blacks as any other white group. And according to Smith, though there are heated tensions between the two groups and the ties are not as strong as they were in the early part of the 1900s, Jews have a more positive attitude towards blacks than any other white group. Smith's survey further indicated that the most conservative groups against blacks are Protestants and Baptist fundamentalists. Okay, so that was that whole spiel, y'all. But understand that we as black people, we have always come to the aid of other races. We in hopes that once we help build them up, they'll reach back down to help us come up. And we lose all of our power because we relinquish so much of it in the beginning of the relationship. And I believe that's why we are so untrusting now, even towards each other. And it's so crazy that we're so untrusting towards each other when we really are all we got, if you think about it. But again, our mentality has been misconstrued through the years within all of this craziness. The fact that we as black people will never be able to achieve the level of power that any other race has built coming to the United States is sad, because we are the ones that created it. It speaks on how every time the blacks come up with a civil rights movement, the focus goes towards another group that falls within the category. So initially, the civil rights were meant for black people, but once you started to label who these minorities were, we had to now identify the women. We now had to identify different races, Chinese, Jewish, whatever the case may be. We have to identify handicap. Now it's LGBTQ. We have all of this. We have an umbrella now of who minorities are. So we still have not effectively found a way to have something just for us. We have nothing that is just for us. And we are struggling trying to figure out what is the best power move to play, because ultimately the white people have the top hand. They have the power card. They can slap that down at a moment's notice. They have access to unlimited income stream revenues. I mean, they lock down these financial institutions. They control all of this, and if you ever wanted to do something, look at the movie The Banker. The Banker speaks on how black people have had to wiggle their way and be so creative in their mechanisms just to be able to run the race with white people. The Banker spoke on the real estate market and how during a time where there was redlining and blacks were only, you know, allowed to live in certain areas, and this guy who wanted to find out how to build his own wealth like white people did as a kid, he learned how to do real estate strictly just by stuff that he heard of the shoe shine boy and ear hustling and things like that. So this man has found a way to go to, I believe initially it was, I can't remember the city, but he ended up in Texas somehow after he found a way to get in. He found his way by finding another black investor who had his hand in a lot of the city's, pockets. But then he found a white boy that he could put as the face of the company. And that was the only way that he was able to dominate the market and allow other black people to even come into white areas, because at the time there would be no realtors that would sell in those types of areas. So it just wasn't common, but they had this white face person who was able to infiltrate and be the spokesperson. Ultimately, they did go to jail for it, but just the things that we have to create. We had Tulsa, Oklahoma. We have the means to do things, and we show white people what we are capable of, and they destroy it. We have black leaders who are able to direct us and get us to a place where we're able to stand on our own, but you kill them. These are the things that we're up against, and they will not acknowledge it. And that's the problem. When you don't want to be accountable, accountability says a lot. Once you're accountable, you're able to now identify ways that you can correct your action. But when you don't want to be accountable, it's like a big fuck you, regardless of how many statues you want to take down or changes to names and things like that you want to come across just to make people feel better. The look of it to be okay. It needs to be okay, period. In every aspect. I want to be able to have my son not go outside and feel like the fact that he has a car and able to get on the road, that he doesn't have to be paranoid about the areas that he drives to, about how to respond when he's in a car and gets pulled over for some dumb reason that an officer cannot even explain, just because he's an officer and he deserves respect. I want to be a well-respected citizen. I want to be able to walk around like these white people who feel like they have the power to do any and everything, and they do. They show us that daily through these videos, through all of these, the blatant disrespect that we receive, and is videoed on the media, and nobody does anything about it. I mean, we're just now getting to the point where people are getting arrested, but it's how much people got to protest every night and day just to get y'all to move, when it should be as simple as following the judicial system that you put in place, that's supposed to be protecting and serving everybody, and not just the people that look like me, or that doesn't apply to people that wear blue uniforms. Like, when did they become gods? When did you become gods? That's not fair to a society. That's not fair to the Americas in general. But I mean, I just think that that's just my ideas on just the Jewish relationship, the why and how we came to this point. I don't think that it's fair that Nick Canon had to be subjected to even an apology for some shit that people know is true. And just again, the ego. So our ego that's not my problem. That's your issue. I shouldn't have to apologize because you're too fucking sensitive and you can't have a healthy discussion about something that has been so embedded into the DNA of this country from day one. If you are really trying to make change, then quit trying to figure out how to find a new black friend to claim. Or, saying that, you just saying Black Lives Matter, but you're not really into what it takes to actually affect the change. Those hard changes. when we have to make those hard choices of who we choose to support and not be a part of the tearing down of what black people do attempt to create out of all of this. I feel like this quarantine has brought us to a place where we are able to become more independent, more entrepreneurial, and able to, I guess, play off of the emotions of what has been stirred up in regards to Black Lives Matter and things like that, because emotions are high. People, are trying to find ways to not be judged as against black people or whatever the case may be. So use it to our advantage right now. If y'all want to give out some money for some business developments or whatever else, we need to take hold of that, because we are owed that and so much more. The fact that they came up with a stimulus in seconds when we ain't had reparations in who knows when. I mean, we don't forget this shit. Like, y'all are able to do this, and you tell us a lie in our face and say that reparations wouldn't make sense. But it does make sense. You have the ability to make it happen. If we structured it in the right way, reparations could come about, and we could achieve the level of, I would guess, achievement of, I want to be on the level of the Jewish folks. That's the level of shit I want to have. I want to have that community. I want to have that educational piece in there. Or I mean, they have it locked. Their culture, the religion, everything is infused now with our, I guess, American heritage, if you want to call it. But it's accepted, and it's like, what can you really do? But continue to keep fighting. And I pray to God that these men like Nick Canon, who's going out his way to do the work and research on the information and begin to try to take a stand, but now it's trying to be silenced. I hope that we can go beyond that, where we can just do what we need to do and make it work for us. We need to quit being so worried about the dollars of everybody else, because we know that we can make it happen. We just got to come together to make it happen. And it's as simple as that. So that's my rant. I did read y'all a daytime story today. I do hope y'all enjoyed it. Again, it's called Black Labor, White Wealth. And this is Dr. Claude Anderson. Y'all have had to have heard this man's name. This is, I mean, come on. He is the one when it comes to all of the economic and social structures. I believe he is the guru. Anything he talks about, I listen to. So if you have a second, pick that book up and just read through it. What he puts in this book, it just makes you so upset at our compliance and our meekness. But it's so contradictory, actually, because it's like, those were the character traits that allowed them to just run over us. But yet we're the threatening ones. We're the animals. How? When y'all robbed and killed our people to create us to be this lower class individual, but we're threatening. You're scared. I'm sure you should be. But come on, who's the real threat here? Me or you? I just pray to God it don't get to the point where it is some type of civil war and people are, doing what they have to do. I'm praying that America can come to some sort of resolve into how we handle injustice and things like that. The Breonna Taylor thing, come on now. That should be a hands down case, but yet we are still here. And people are still getting arrested on her behalf just to get the right thing to be done, and that is to arrest the cops. But something so simple, Elijah McCain walking down the street, the boy, come on now. All of this stuff is too blatant for us to accept as it's okay. Oh, he's off the force, he's retired, he's going to go somewhere else and do that somewhere else. So no, we're not accepting that anymore. We do have a voice and we will use it, and we're going to figure out a way to create our own authority and power, and we will execute. So whether it be a good way or a bad way, we need y'all to get saddle up and get the fuck on, because it's necessary at this point. We trying to live around these parts. So that was my piece. That's my rant. You missed out, Sleeve. I'm sweating now, so I'm about to get to moving. So, but I appreciate you stopping in. I'm about to upload it to Facebook too. So, but yeah, I had to say that shit today. I had to. So, got it off my chest. The end. Fin.